Well, earlier this week, Michigan became the last U.S. state to legalize paid surrogacy. Democrat Governor Gretchen Whitmer approved the measure. The Michigan Family Protection Act is a group of bills that supporters say will make it easier to start a family. The Catholic Church is opposed to surrogacy. And January, Pope Francis had this to say.
La via della pace esige il rispetto della vita.
The path to peace calls for respect for life, for every human life, starting with the life of the unborn child in the mother's womb, which cannot be suppressed or turned into an object of trafficking. In this regard, I deem deplorable the practice of so-called surrogate motherhood, which represents a grave violation of the dignity of the woman and the child, based on the exploitation of situations of the mother's material needs.
And here with more reaction is Genevieve Marnon, a legislative director for Right to Life Michigan, which campaigned against the bill. Genevieve, thank you so much for your time today. So I want to get your reaction to the bill's passing, and also, what have you been hearing from others?
You know, I think it's a sad day in Michigan. We now have a 9-bill package that was just signed into law that will now legalize rent-a-womb for women to be exploited using their bodies to produce children for other people, and the potential for children to be turned into commodities. And that's really what surrogacy contracts do. Prior to these bills, Michigan allowed altruistic or non-compensated surrogacy, which allowed a friend to carry a child for a friend or a sister. But now when you add money and compensation, you create a commercial business, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, it really is unfortunate. You mentioned those surrogacy contracts. I want to go back to that. Tell us, a little bit more about those. And I know there's abortion clauses, as well as, psychological effects on both parties.
Well, you nailed the big problem with the surrogacy contracts is that almost without exception, these contracts contain abortion clauses so that the intended parents can order an abortion if the child perhaps has a fetal anomaly, maybe they change their mind, it's the wrong sex, or whatever the case may be. And while you can't force a woman to have an abortion, they can impose serious legal and financial penalties on the woman for not submitting to an abortion at the behest of the intended parent. And that's a real problem.
It certainly is. And I know there were other bills passed in this 9-bill package, other laws, that is. Tell us a little bit more about that, and how do they affect parents and families more broadly?
Well, this was a huge bill package that completely upended all of our parentage laws in the state of Michigan. These bills will now allow 2 unmarried people to contract to own a child, for lack of a better word. Donor eggs, donor sperm. You don't have to be genetically related to the child, and there's no state oversight. So that's a huge change from Michigan's previous law, which mandated that an actual legal adoption take place, which is child protective. There's state oversight to make sure that that child is going into a safe home and not being bought or sold, for example, as we saw happen with a baby surrogacy ring in California 10 years ago or so.
Genevieve, has there been any pushback to this? Do you think there's going to be maybe an appeal of sorts or any other legislative mechanism to, overturn these bills?
Well, right now, unfortunately, it does appear that they will go into effect because the way the majorities in our legislature are set up right now. I hope that at some point that people will come to the realization that surrogacy contracts and putting a woman's body under a contract is not in the best interest of families and society. In fact, I'll let people know most of the European countries don't allow any form of surrogacy. And Michigan's previous law, the one that allowed altruistic, non-compensated surrogacy, was more in keeping with a lot of other countries like Canada, Australia, and Great Britain. So while they want to make Michigan out to be the last state to legalize paid surrogacy contracts, Michigan's previous law was more in keeping with the rest of the world, and it's much more child and mother protective.
Well, Genevieve, thank you for coming on and for your insights on all this. We really appreciate it. We're going to continue to follow this. God bless.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.